Okay, hello, peace. I am going to talk about God. The Muslims believe that God is the creator. That's what they call God. I started calling God the creator years ago, not knowing that that was what they called God. They also believe that God is a loving, creative energy that surrounds everything. And that is also what I believe. So, two for two. Um, now I went to heaven because my now ex husband Peter um, put some poison and some sleeping drugs in a cup of coffee, and then when I fell asleep, he poured five ounces of ether in my pillow. He pushed my face into the pillow so that I would be smothered, and then I think when I was clinically dead, then he poured 5 ounces of ether on the pillow so that my face was literally in the ether. And then he went to work, figuring that when the kids got home, they would find me dead. In the meantime, though, I went to heaven, and it was really spectacular. I can't even describe it. It was wonderful, and the feeling that you have in heaven is so great. And I describe it in my book, The Truth About Lynn Mickelsen, which has some of the stories, and this one I think is where The Shack, the movie, the book, The Shack came from. I've seen that guy interviewed, and he said he thought it was funny, so he wrote it into a book, and he turned it into a child murder book, and then he put my account of God in the book to be funny. And I've heard him say that, but it really touched people. And I think the reason why the God part in the book, even though it was written by somebody who was probably in a satanic cult, because that's the only way he would have heard that story, and it still could touch someone's heart, is because it rings true. So so what happened was I woke up in a garden, and I'm looking around, and I thought, this is like the most spectacular garden I have ever seen. If you've been to an arboretum, or like we in New Jersey, I used to go to Duke Gardens. Doris Duke had a lot of property, and most of it was kept as a garden. And then she had this terrific greenhouse where they would do the plant startings and so forth. But she would open that to the public, and you could go for a tour. You'd have to park down off the property, and they would jitney you up. And of course, they charged for the tour, but it wasn't a whole lot. It was really, really a spectacular day because they were nice gardens. So if you've been to a garden like that, and you know that people will arrange the flowers in the garden, but this was, it was so extraordinary because the way the stems went, and where the flowers were placed was also just as magnificent as the flowers and plants themselves. And I was really struck by that the stems weren't really thick enough to hold flowers the size that the flowers were. So, and then I started to try to figure that out. And then I see this guy come from my right, and he's walking toward me, and he's smiling, and he had on jeans. You know, he looked like he was a worker, and he's smiling away, and he's walking toward me. I figured, well, this is his garden. I don't know how I got here. So I'm still looking at the flowers, and I could feel that he had come up right next to me, and I said, what is this place? And he said, heaven. And he's smiling, and I look over, and good-looking black man, and I should say that he looked like a lot like Michael Strahan without the gap. He was a very good-looking, burly black man. So those pictures, I said to him, you don't look anything like your pictures. And he realized, that in the pictures he's white and skinny, and yeah, he didn't. So he laughed and laughed. He thought that was funny, which is good. So I said, so heaven, I said, it must be, because how else would you do this? And he said, would you like to see some more? And I said, of heaven? And he said, sure. And I said, sure. So he said, see over there. And the way it was, there was no gravity. And like the over there was as far as you could see. So on Earth, it would have been 15 miles, right? That's about as far as we can see. And our eyes can actually see further, because just a side note, in the desert, there's a very low spot. It's 100 feet below sea level, and you can see a mountain in Mexico 150 miles away. So your eyes can actually see pretty darn far. It's just that the horizon, everything drops off at about 11 to 15 miles, depending on how high up you are. So I said, how are we going to get there? And he said, walk. And now I have multiple sclerosis, and I'm thinking, oh yeah. And he said, come on. So I started to walk, and each step we took was probably like a mile. I mean, it just was so easy to walk. And as we're walking, he said, how do you feel? And I said, fine. And then he just looked at me and he said, how do you feel? So I thought about it, and I felt great. I said, great. I feel great. And he smiled. He said, good. And we went to this other place with fields and trees and wildflowers and a beautiful meadow. And then I told him it was, fabulous. It was just great, and I felt great. And you don't feel hungry, you don't feel tired, you just feel great. I say that sex on Earth, part of the reason for sex is that it makes you feel the way you feel in heaven. That orgasmic feeling, that's what you feel in heaven. So then you said, would you like to see another place? And I'm like, yeah. So we went, and there was this cove with these waterfalls coming down, the streams everywhere, and I love that. That to me is heaven. That was beautiful, and that's why I like it here in the west, because everywhere you look there's mountains and there's water and it's green. Oh yeah, so I said it's like the Emerald Isle. And he didn't know what that was, so I said that is Ireland. And then I started to think, well, what would God, want to... So I started to say where St. Patrick is from. And he said, no, I know Ireland. I said, okay. Yeah, and he's cracking jokes the whole time. He's funny and just delightful guy. And so then he said, do you want to see my father's house? And I said, sure. And I thought, I don't know what I thought, but I remember thinking this has got to be some kind of an honor, so we walk some more and we get to this place, and I can't even really describe it because it was so beautiful. And there was, again, it was all natural, except there was gold, which is natural here. It grows in the ground. It doesn't grow, but and like huge tapestries made out of flowers and lichen and mosses, and those tiny flowers that grow in the mosses, and in designs that he's a really good artist. If you look at rocks and stuff, God is a really good artist. There's, no comparison to what we can do, to what he can do. It's great. And then he said, would you like to stay here? And I said, sure. And he said, no. And then God said, you have to go back. You have work to do. And I thought, now at the time, all I could remember was that I worked for a bank, 9 to 5 for a bank. And just for the record, I did government reporting for the bank, making sure that the bank loaned in low income areas and in racially mixed areas, not just to the rich white folks. So I felt like I was keeping the bank honest, making the bank be the good guys, so to speak. So I said, no, I don't have to go back to work. and he said, you have work to do. And I couldn't see God, I couldn't see him, but I could see this collection of energy, and I'll just say it didn't look exactly like it, but the closest thing on earth that's like it is when you have a movie that has pixels in it, and they're kind of floating around, real busy, energized dots, but you couldn't really see any shape until then the pixels all turned into a hand, the shape of a hand, a huge hand, as big as I fit into the hand, about like that. And he put me in his hand and he threw me back into my body. So that's as far as I know, it's my soul. He put me back. So he seemed to think I had work to do, and I was upset about that. And then he said, lift up your head. And I did try, but I couldn't. And he said again, lift up your head. And I tried again, and I said, I can't. And then the hand turned about twice my hand size. And he put it on I could feel his fingers on my forehead. And he lifted my head and turned it to the side and put it down. And he said, now breathe. So I did. And he said, now get up and take a shower. And then when I got up and I started to walk to the shower, to the bathroom, and I could feel this stuff on my face. And I touched it, and it was slimy. And I could smell it, and it smelled very metallic. And I mean, it was everywhere. It was in my eyes, it was in my nose, it was in my mouth. And I thought, if that's ether, with that much ether, I shouldn't be up and about. I shouldn't be able to walk to the shower. And then, so I started the shower, and I got in the shower. I think I looked in the mirror, and I looked awful, awful, like black. I was blackish blue, black, like really blue, darker than any of that, almost black. So, and then I took soap and a washcloth because I wanted to get it off my face, that stuff off my face. And then I was using the washcloth on my crotch, and it started to bleed. I'm assuming because my skin had already started to disintegrate. And I thought, I'm going to bleed out, because it just started to really bleed. And there's another disgusting part in there that I will, if you want to read it, you can read it. And I thought to God, if you want me to live, you got to stop this bleeding. And I hopped out of the bathtub, and the blood was coming out of me so quickly that my legs were red, and there was a puddle on the floor of blood. So I took a wad of toilet paper and pushed it up against my crotch, and I held it there for a while, thinking, I'll wait until it fills with blood, and then I'll, put another one on there. And I waited, and he said, you can take it off now. And I did, and there was nothing on the toilet paper. There was one speck of blood, but that must have already been on my crotch. So it was already healed by the time I picked up the toilet paper. So that's pretty good. So the whole thing, I think that's a miracle. And I have miracles that happen a lot. Little things. Like, I did the movie, I directed the movie Scrooged with Bill Murray. Good movie. The little boy they chose to play Tiny Tim, only they chose him because he didn't talk, and that was going to be his malady, was that he didn't talk. And in real life, the little boy didn't talk. So they figured, well, they wanted to get a kid who actually didn't talk, because they didn't want the kid to mess up and forget that he's not supposed to talk and say something. So he said, God bless us, everyone. And that was a miracle. So when people say miracles don't happen, miracles happen a lot. We just don't pay attention to them. We don't know that it's a miracle that happened. A lot of times there's things that happen from your angels will help you out. And you'll think to yourself, well, how did that happen? How did I know to do that? Well, because your angel told you to do that. Again, when I was escaping Donald Trump, it was the angels who said, she's unlocking that door for her husband. She heard the bus. You could go in that house. And so I went in that house. And it was fine. It worked. It worked like a charm. So, but if you listen, if you just listen and pay attention and then try it, you think, well, this is that, you'll think to yourself, well, that's an odd thought. That's not something I would normally think. Well, that is either an angel or God. And you might want to try listening, because he'll always give you good advice. God, oh, he is the best. He's the best. When people come to me for advice, and I've been labeled an oracle, and I think that in the Matrix, they have that black woman who is baking cookies. That was me, I love to bake cookies and stuff for the kids. And she was the oracle. I think that they took that from me, I think. Anyway, just pay attention. God's watching you. He doesn't judge, and he doesn't think we are sinners. God doesn't believe in sin. People do, but God doesn't. And he'll give you good advice. So listen to him, because once you do, your life will change. I think I will add to that altruism. If you help somebody out somewhere down the road, that's going to come back to you. Karma, that works. That works. And people have told me that they've listened to me, they've done that, and now their life is completely changed, and they are so happy, where they used to be so miserable that they would contemplate suicide every day. So those two things, listen to your angels and to God, and help out others whenever you have an opportunity, and then your life is going to start to turn around. And if you think that sex is a bad thing, it's a great thing. But wait, and try heterosexual sex. Don't try pedophilia. That won't make you happy. So, there you go. Easy peasy, right?